It seems like no matter how much time passes, the storm around love and marriage, Huntsville never really fades away. Every time fans think things are starting to calm down, something new surfaces, another outburst, another accusation, another wave of blame. And this time, the person stirring the pot again is none other than Ms. Wanda. The same Ms. Wanda who has made a name for herself for always speaking her mind, whether people like it or not. But this time, the target of her words wasn't just some random person on social media. It was Melody Sherry and her loyal supporters, the Malamators. Now, before anyone rushes to judgment, let's slow it down and understand how we even got here. This whole situation started when Tisha, Wanda's daughter, went live and opened up about her cousin Kiki's passing. It was an emotional live. Tisha spoke about how Kiki used to always call her on her birthday, even when the two weren't on the best of terms. She reflected on those moments that are now gone forever, and you could see the sadness on her face. Losing someone you share blood with, especially after years of family tension, is not something easy to talk about publicly. But right after that, Ms. Wanda decided to speak out. Instead of keeping things calm and letting her daughter grieve, Wanda took the moment and shifted it into something else, something darker. She started calling out a blogger, saying that bloggers need to stop talking about her and her daughter, claiming that people were trying to twist the story and make them look bad. But as usual, Wanda's comments didn't stop there. She began connecting dots that didn't belong together, pulling Melody Sherry and her fans right into the middle of this family tragedy. According to Wanda, the bloggers, the Malamators, and even Melody herself played a part in the way Kiki was treated and what eventually happened. She made it sound like everyone else had some kind of hand in the situation. But that's where things started to rub people the wrong way. Because if we rewind just a bit, the truth is, it was Wanda and Tisha who had been the loudest voices against Kiki when she was still alive. They were the ones constantly clashing with her, shading her, and questioning her loyalty. Now that Kiki has passed, suddenly the story is being rewritten. Suddenly the same people who mocked her and shut her out are now trying to act like they were the ones who were always in her corner. And that's the kind of thing that doesn't sit right with viewers or with bloggers who have followed this show for years. What made it worse is that Wanda didn't just express grief or regret, she began blaming others. She said Melody had something to do with Kiki's firing from the show. She tried to twist the narrative to make it seem like Melody was the reason for everything that went wrong. But here's the reality, Melody didn't bring drama into Kiki's life. Melody didn't humiliate her on television. Melody didn't make her the target of endless shade. When Kiki appeared on the show, it was actually through Melody's connection that she even got that opportunity. Melody was a producer. When producers make decisions, sometimes those decisions are not personal, they're professional. To blame Melody for doing her job or following production orders is unfair. Especially when the same people blaming her were the ones who treated Kiki like an outsider from the beginning. What makes this entire situation more painful is the lack of accountability. Instead of admitting that maybe they didn't treat Kiki right, instead of acknowledging that their actions may have hurt her, Wanda and Tisha are turning that guilt into blame. They're projecting their own discomfort onto Melody and her supporters. It's easier for them to say, it's Melody's fault, than to sit down and say, maybe we should have done better. That's what makes this whole thing so sad. Because behind all the shouting, the social media posts, and the public shade, there's grief. There's guilt. There's pain. And guilt has a way of showing itself through anger. Wanda's outburst doesn't just sound like someone defending her family, it sounds like someone who's wrestling with something deep inside. When people feel guilty, they start lashing out at whoever is easiest to blame. And in Huntsville, Melody Sherry has always been the easiest target. It doesn't matter what happens, somehow, Melody gets blamed. Whether it's ratings, friendships, broken marriages, or cast drama, there's always someone ready to say it's Melody's fault. But how much longer can this go on before people start asking the real question, why are they so obsessed with blaming her? If we look at the pattern, it's clear. Whenever something doesn't go their way, Melody's name gets pulled into it. When Martell's relationship failed, it was Melody's fault. When friendships ended, it was Melody's fault. When people were fired, it was Melody's fault. And now, even when tragedy strikes, somehow her name is still being dragged through the mud. That kind of obsession doesn't come from logic, it comes from jealousy, resentment, and denial. And what's even more frustrating is the way Wanda continues to spread venom. She talks about bloggers turning on her, fans attacking her, and millimeters being the cause of everything wrong. But the truth is, the fans were not the ones who mocked Kiki. The fans were not the ones who filmed scenes throwing shade at her. In fact, the majority of the online community had nothing but respect and love for Kiki. Many bloggers spoke kindly of her, defended her, and highlighted how strong she was for standing up for herself. Even when Kiki had disagreements with Melody, the fans still handled it with maturity. They didn't go on smear campaigns. They didn't mock her pain. That's what separates real supporters from people who just want to stir up drama. So when Wanda goes on live and tries to point fingers at everyone else, it's hard not to see it as a projection of her own guilt. The truth is, she's not mad at Melody or the fans, she's mad at herself. Because deep down, she knows she could have treated Kiki better. She knows there were moments when she could have been kinder, when she could have been a real support system instead of a source of pain. And now that Kiki is gone, those chances are gone too. That's the kind of pain that eats at a person from the inside. It's the kind of pain that makes people lash out and look for someone else to blame. But as many fans have pointed out online, healing doesn't come from blaming others. Healing comes from accountability. Healing comes from sitting with your guilt and working through it. The saddest part about all this is that Wanda doesn't seem ready to face that truth. Instead of letting herself grieve and reflect, she's using social media as a weapon. She's turning every live session into a platform for blame. She claims she wants to move on, but her actions say otherwise. Because every time she speaks on this, she brings Melody's name up again. Every time she posts, she finds a way to drag the fans who had nothing to do with her pain. And that's where people start to see through it. Because if you're truly trying to move on, you don't keep reopening the same wound. You don't keep attacking the same people. You don't keep rewriting the same story. It's time Wanda accepts that what she's feeling is her own guilt. It's not the fans' fault. It's not Melody's fault. It's her own emotions catching up to her. The truth always comes out eventually, and no amount of shouting or blaming can change that. The Love and Marriage, Huntsville community has seen too many moments like this. People pointing fingers instead of taking accountability. People twisting stories instead of telling the truth. It's a cycle that never seems to end. But one thing about the fans, they remember everything. They remember who stood with Kiki and who turned against her. They remember who supported her and who mocked her. And no amount of live videos can erase that history. When Wanda blames Melody for everything that went wrong, she's ignoring the fact that Melody showed grace even when others didn't. When Kiki started talking to bloggers and saying things about Melody, Melody didn't drag her. She didn't go online to bash her. She stayed silent and kept it classy. That's what real maturity looks like. And maybe that's what really bothers Wanda and Tisha. Maybe deep down, seeing Melody handle things with grace reminds them of everything they failed to do. Because grace exposes guilt. When someone handles conflict with peace while you're responding with anger, it forces you to look in the mirror. And maybe that's a reflection they don't want to see. The internet isn't fooled. Viewers see the pattern. They see the hypocrisy. They see how quickly sympathy turns into blame. And the more Wanda tries to rewrite the story, the more people push back. This isn't about drama anymore. It's about accountability and truth. It's about how grief can turn into guilt, and guilt can turn into blame if it's not handled properly. Wanda is not the first person to project her pain onto someone else, but she does need to stop turning that pain into public attacks. Because at some point, the question becomes, what are you really angry about? Are you angry at Melody, or are you angry at yourself for the way things turned out? Are you angry at the bloggers, or are you angry because deep down you know they're right? If we're honest, it seems more like jealousy than anything else. Jealousy of Melody's peace. Jealousy of her confidence. Jealousy of the way she can move through all the chaos without losing herself. Because no matter what's thrown her way, Melody doesn't lose her composure. She doesn't fight dirty. She doesn't let bitterness take over. And that's something not everyone knows how to do. While Wanda is on live venting, Melody is somewhere focusing on her kids, her career, her peace. That contrast speaks volumes. It shows the difference between people who heal and people who keep hurting others because they haven't healed themselves. And for the fans who have been watching this unfold, they're tired. They're tired of seeing Melody blamed for everything. They're tired of seeing grown adults refuse to take responsibility. They're tired of seeing grief turned into gossip. Because this was never about bloggers. It was never about Melody or her fans. This was about unresolved family pain. And instead of facing that pain, Wanda turned it into a performance. But every performance eventually ends, and when the cameras go off, the truth is still there. If Wanda truly wants peace, she needs to stop pointing fingers and start looking inward. She needs to accept that she didn't treat Kiki right. She needs to forgive herself instead of attacking others. She needs to stop dumping her emotions onto people who had nothing to do with her pain. The truth is, grief can be confusing. It can twist your mind. It can make you angry at people who didn't do anything wrong. But the only way through it is honesty. And that's what Wanda has been running from. Every time she drags Melody's name, it's another distraction from her own guilt. Every time she attacks the Malameters, it's another attempt to shift the spotlight away from herself. But people see through it now. And that's why this time, her words didn't land the way she thought they would. Instead of sympathy, she got backlash. Instead of support, she got criticism. Because people are no longer buying the story that Melody and her fans are to blame for everything. That narrative is old, and it's falling apart. At the end of the day, Wanda's energy says a lot about where she is emotionally. Still angry, still bitter, still defensive. And that's why it comes across as jealousy. Because you can only stay mad at someone who hasn't done anything to you for so long before people start wondering, why are you really upset? If this situation teaches anything, it's that accountability will always win over blame. Melody continues to rise above it all because she knows who she is. She doesn't need to fight back. She doesn't need to match anyone's energy. And that's why no matter what Wanda says, the truth will still shine through. The sad part is that this whole thing could have been avoided. A private apology, a quiet reflection, a moment of honesty, that's all it would have taken. But instead, it turned into another public mess. Another moment of chaos. Another time where instead of healing, more wounds were opened. So now, people are left wondering what's next. Will Wanda keep going down this road of anger and blame, or will she finally choose to heal? Because until she does, she'll keep dragging Melody's name into things that have nothing to do with her. And honestly, that's not just unfair, it's exhausting. Wanda needs to stop rewriting the story. Kiki's memory deserves peace. The fans deserve peace. Melody deserves peace. And maybe, just maybe, Wanda deserves peace too, but only if she's willing to stop projecting and start reflecting. Because at the end of the day, peace doesn't come from blaming others. It comes from facing your own reflection and saying, I was wrong. Until that day comes, this cycle will keep repeating. And every time it does, the truth will keep getting louder. Melody Sherry was never the villain, they just needed her to be one so they wouldn't have to face their own guilt.